the thing I'm having trouble with is and I think you raise valid points, but you suggest that everyone in this room basically is having their phone records examined, or
not unless they're a
email.
Republican. No, not everybody. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
But do you have evidence of that?
Everybody's phone records being collected.
Right, but not everybody's phone records. An infinitesimal.
That to me is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. Collecting your phone records is a violation.
But nobody, but you concede that nobody's looking at them
unless they are not nobody.
Connected,
they're not looking at everyone's phone records and not listening to everybody's. But there are Americans who are having their phone calls. The records are being looked at, and some are being listened to. Some of it's sort of this backdoor way that they target someone over there to try to get to them over here. But that is, to me, it really is not a question of, and it's not a question of whether the president's a good person or the people he's in charge. But where I really fundamentally disagree with the president is he thinks due process is hiring some more attorneys to work in the NSA and give him some advice. Due process is in a court with a lawyer on both sides arguing it with a judge and with a jury. You can't get due process by just hiring some attorneys to try to have some privacy safeguards. Collecting 180 million, 200 million phone records is a great breach of our privacy. And I think when you sign up with a phone company, you sign a contract and it's a privacy agreement, like they don't share my phone calls with you. You can't just go look at my phone calls. Why should they be allowed to share them with the government? When I sign that contract, I'm retaining a privacy interest, and this is what we'll argue before the Supreme Court. We're in the federal court in Washington. I hope to go before the Supreme Court, and the argument will be, I didn't give up my records to you, the phone company. I gave you the right to hold them, but I retained a privacy interest in them through my contract.
If you were a suspect in a crime, then you
absolutely get a judge's warrant.
Right,
and get it.
Right.
Put your name. But see, that's the
Fourth
Amendment.
Now that's the rule that's in place now, is that they have to get a warrant if there's a suspicion to look at these records that they're collecting.
Right. I would say that you cannot collect all of these records. You cannot accumulate all of this data without a warrant. So it's not the warrant to look at the data. To me, it's a warrant to collect the data.
So your concern is that the data, even if it exists at the phone company, and the government can, with a court order, ask for a specific.
There have already been instances of individual employees abusing this and looking at the information. So it's not that there hasn't been any abuses of the program, but it's the potential for abuse. I mean, think about in our times. I mean, I had this conversation with Eric Holder in his office. I said, look, this is where J. Edgar Hoover's office used to be. Everybody remembers what J. Edgar Hoover did to people during the civil rights, movement. We spied on hundreds of thousands of people that were for civil rights and people who were against the Vietnam War. That's within my lifetime, just barely within my lifetime. But the thing is that wouldn't you worry that there might be someone come in place that would abuse that power and abuse those records?
This is a place where I think actually the word balance matters, because I worry deeply about the issues you're raising, and I also worry, and part of it is having been there and having been privy to some of the things that they have to deal with every day. I also worry about the safety of Americans. So
I think you have to find a balance. I think you can have the Bill of Rights and still have safety. The thing is I'm not against looking at these records. If we think Mr. Smith is a terrorist, write his name down on a warrant and get his records. If he called 100 people, boom, send out give 100 more warrants. If he called 1,000 people, but it does mean someone has to look.
Now, if the government doesn't collect, I don't want to belabor, the government doesn't collect the data, and the data stays with the phone company, isn't that the system that we're going to have?
Right now, they say the phone companies, and I haven't gotten an exact answer on this, they say the phone companies keep your records for about 18 months for their purposes. Then I've also heard that it's actually a regulation that they keep them. I think they actually keep them, and it's not necessarily a mandate that they keep them. But I think that the process of having police power separated from the judiciary on warrants, and that a warrant needs to have a person's name on it, and that really I just don't think, they currently say that your email after 6 months has no protection at all. That's how they got Petraeus having an affair. They looked at his email after 6 months, but they didn't even need a warrant to look at his email. We've gone too far. We've gone way too far in allowing a breach of privacy.